Tuesday. We had an exception yesterday. Should I tell them, Eric? Yeah, don't tell them. So Eric is the board member of his church, and they have special governance meetings every quarter. Is it every quarter, something like that? So he had to go Monday night, and we couldn't do this. So anyway, so it's Tuesday, September 16th, the year of our Lord 2025. We are in the Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut. And before I really start, I just need to promote a special event that's coming on Saturday, September 20th, right here. I don't know how well you can position that, but it's the Peace Talk. It'll be for 1/2 hour. I guess, will there be some speakers, do you think?
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, there'll
That's
probably.
all I know is what you see there.
So there'll probably be a couple speakers. So for people in and around the Stamford area, you definitely want to come out and see that. All right, meantime, I'm going to jump to the op-ed. If you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you read it. It is titled Harvesting Hate. Now, that doesn't sound like a very good title, but if you read the op-ed, I think you'll find out that there's a slightly different take on things. To kick it off, there was an interesting, just to paint the picture, all right? We've seen some other clips now since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and his wife has been putting up these little clips where she would ask him each day, baby, what are your words of wisdom today? And he'd offer up various things, biblical phrases, sayings, and things. And then he came up with this one, which I thought was really interesting. He said, taste your words before you spit them out. I like to say it again. Taste your words before you spit them out. It's a good start, because so much of this is about the bitterness of the words that have been exchanged. You know, we're seeing, from our side, these liberals, if I can even call them that, I prefer to call them demons. They may have a political label to them, but their words, the tone, the nature of their comments, they clearly qualify as demonic. Now, so I'll just read this first part. The bitter taste of hatred is felt by everyone in this nation. It is tasted by those who are grieving over the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and it is also tasted by those who spit out hatred on this nation while mindlessly celebrating his assassination. Now, of course, the comment has been raised over and over again, and I will just add my voice to it. This is a moment that is very, shall we say, clarifying, because now we are beginning to see who the enemy really is. We're shocked to find that it's our neighbors. We're shocked to find that it's teachers, nurses, doctors, airline pilots. What in dear God's name has gone wrong? We don't know, but we are seeing this, okay? So one comment I would like to offer to my fellow Christians is that, you remember, Christ told us to love our enemy. Well, guess what? The moment is here. Now we get to love our enemies, as evil and demonic as they are. And we're not going to play their game, all right? So a couple other points here is that, we hate to say this, but as a result of his assassination, there's a surprising number of what we'll call good things are happening. And not just ordinary good things. These would have been the things that Charlie himself would have hoped to accomplish in his life. And the notion that he is able to accomplish these things on a greater magnitude in his death, I don't know. I got to work on that one for a while. So one of the things that's remarkable, what was the number of requests for new Turning Point chapters? Did you say 35,000?
30 and 35,000.
That just blows my mind.
That's college. High school was about 27,000.
In addition.
So total, it's over 50,000 combined.
Wow. Okay. In his wildest dreams, Charlie would never have imagined something like that happening. Okay. The other part you need to keep in mind, dear audience, is that awful events like these sharpen our sensibilities as Christians. So you can be sure that when we get together, it's going to be with a sense of devotion and commitment unlike anything we've experienced before. At least I believe that, okay? Meantime, you can you count the number of Democrats who have had it? Already the videos are up. There have been some on TikTok, for example. Person self-identifies as a Democrat, cannot stand what he or she is seeing, and as far as they're concerned, they are no longer Democrats. So this leads to another troubling situation, of course, right? If people who have sensibility are leaving the party, what's left? The demons are what's left. The Democrat Party becomes the demon party. Now, on a somewhat related note, I challenge you, the audience, to do a little homework. One of the first parties that helped shape this nation was the, Alan?
Whigs?
There was another one.
Democrat Republicans, right?
I don't think they identified it at that point. That would be the Federalist Party, okay? I believe Alexander Hamilton was the founder of the Federalist Party, same one who wrote most of the Federalist
Yeah,
Papers.
who's that black rapper that's on Broadway?
Okay, you had to do that. Okay, quiz question. Whatever became of the Federalist Party? They stopped. How did it happen? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you the answer. You have to look it up. Okay, if you want to use Wikipedia, that's fine. You'll get the account. Okay, so am I suggesting that there's something similar, a similar fate for the Democrat Party as what befell the Federalist Party? Maybe, maybe not, but it's there for you to think about. Okay, so in the coming months, let me just finish with this last part, all right? So we're going to see this growing of the Christian sensibilities. There is such a need, all right? We keep hearing this talk, but even as Christians are pulling together and becoming stronger in their faith, something still has to be done about BLM, Antifa, these violent transgender people, okay? And so far, we hear some talk, but nothing's really being done. Yes, there need to be investigations, but places like these Antifa rat's nests in Portland and in Seattle, they need to be cleaned out. And there's no question about it. But so far, nothing's happening. So yes, maybe the wheels of justice grind slow but fine. Anyway, all of this needs to be done, okay? But we also know that evil never sleeps. There will be a host of actions working against Christians, so we should expect to be ready for that. Some people have said the next couple of weeks are going to be critical. It is up to us to stay clear, stay on task, and stay the course. Here, the bet is good will prevail. So now I need to move to the news. Oh, the lovely news. All right. So, yeah, what's that? Oh, yes, and by the way, make sure you go to our chat. If you go to the YouTube channel, it should be right there, chat section. Join in if you're listening, and share your comments, right? Now, excuse me, and subscribe. Oh my goodness. It is Chinese water torture at its worst, okay? Yeah, one more. We need to get to 1,000. We need this flood, all right? Anyway, so talked about harvesting hate. Now, you know, I think Eric offered up this image. It's like a Band-Aid has been ripped off and we have discovered that the body has this horrible septic ulcer. And of course, the problem with the septic ulcer is that it's spreading throughout the body. And it is no help to you and me, all right, that while we're sitting here trying to sort this out within the media, you still have people who cannot help themselves. They have to tell lie after lie. They have to throw out all these false narratives, all for the purpose of muddying the waters, okay? One is this crazy notion that this Robinson guy was somehow a Republican. He's part of a Republican family, but he was the liberal black sheep in the family, but somehow the liberals don't want to face up to that. Okay? And
apologies for the shaky cam because we don't have our...
Yeah, okay, yes, all right. I think it adds an element of drama to what we're doing. You know, and then attacking Nick Fuentes, and then the stuff about these false things that were sent out to the historically black colleges and universities. It just, you know, at some point, ladies and gentlemen, how do you process this, okay? You have to be able to look at this information and say that there is an element of just utter falsity about this. They're just making stuff up for two reasons: to get you upset, but more importantly, when those politicians need some financial support from you, you're going to send the money into them because you've been all worked up. Okay, anyway, and so also as on a different, a related note, okay, blue sky, all right? So when you had a lot of people who abandoned X and they formed their own Twitter-like platform called Blue Sky, yes, that place was absolutely littered, right? Littered with these vile comments. And yes, the owner of Blue Sky will be called in for a congressional hearing. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Meantime.
Strongly worded letter.
Well, no, it'll be more than that. You know, there's another dimension here.
Or political theater.
Well, there's always got to be political theater. The question is, will anything come up?
Blowhard will be giving a 15-minute statement after which
No, excuse me. No. Senator Blowhard is right here, okay? Right. Anyway, let me continue. So let me go here. The FBI stink is still there, all right? We know, in spite of Kash Patel's best efforts, that probably the vast majority of the FBI constitutes woke people. So I don't know. He has, you know, the appointments have been delayed, and now there's going to be a push to hurry it up. Great. But let me just start with one. I'm a Michael Savage fan, and he was on. We got the link here. We've got to find a way to get this done right. There was a link. It starts at the 1 hour, 27 minute, and 45 second mark, where Michael Savage carries on about how he thinks a lot of what goes on with the official narrative is very suspicious. His favorite point, and let me dwell on this a little bit, it's a central part of the story, was about the rifle. Okay, for those who followed all the various news accounts that we've been given, first you have the one where you see the perp, if you will, the suspect, walking across this driveway with what appears to be a limp. And people pointed out, well, yes, he had the rifle inside his pants, and he's walking in such a way as to try and obscure it, but he still has to walk funny. Okay, so you see that. Now we fast forward to the one where he's running off the roof, running to escape after the shooting, okay? He wasn't exactly limping, okay? What's going on? Where's the rifle? He couldn't exactly leave it at the scene, and as far as we were told, he didn't. All right, so now we're left with, well, he took the gun apart. Oh, a Mauser, an old Mauser, 30-06, and Michael Savage made the point. Anybody who knows anything about guns, and Mausers in particular, knows that they're very hard to disassemble. Excuse me, and he made the point that if you disassemble, when you reassemble the barrel on the what should I say, the stock, there is I guess there are two lines. To index the barrel and make sure it's lined up right, very hard to do. So you're telling me, says Michael Savage, he disassembled it, carries it down, goes out in the woods, reassembles it, okay? There was a box and a towel, wraps in the towel, puts it in the box, and goes on his merry way. Something stinks. And, you know, the stuff about these words, words that were inscribed, on some cartridges that were associated with the transgender movement, we're a little skeptical about that too, okay? So I think he made his point, and Steve Bannon agreed that these were questions that should be answered. We haven't heard anything, okay? So let me throw in another one. And this, again, is something like nobody's talked about this. I described it to Eric. There was this video. It was on X, and I haven't been able to find it since. And I played it several times to make sure that I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. So here it's in the second that Charlie gets shot, okay? He's sitting there, okay? There are two men behind him, one taller than the other. One has a white hat on, and some people have heard about this with the signals and stuff. And now the odd part is the line of shot of the camera shot, okay? So you see Charlie, you see the two men behind him, and then right behind him, just outside the tent, there's this rather fat man standing there. And as they're gesturing, you see the man outside the tent reach in and pull out what sure looks like a little fuzzy, but it looked like a gun. And the argument is that then there was a signal from one of the guys standing behind Charlie, and that's where the gunman shot Charlie, and you could see he wasn't even 10 yards away, might have been 5 yards away, whoever, and then you saw Charlie fall. All right, I have another theory as I've pondered this. It could be that that gentleman who we thought was the gunman was not the gunman. What he was firing was a laser pointer, okay, to help apparently Robinson aim his shot. So I don't know if we'll ever come to that or find out if that's true or not, but there are enough weird things that I've seen to say that all these pieces don't fit, and the only way I can explain this one is if he was like part of the spotter team and put a laser beam on his neck. So anyway, so there you go with that. So the other complaint now is that the FBI, and this shows that they haven't been cleaned out yet, have had for several days withheld the information about the trans identity of Robinson and the fact that he had a trans boyfriend named Luna. Luna. It's just crazy. Anyway, excuse me. Okay. Now, one of the other upshots of this, all right, as the days have passed and we keep revisiting the same aspects of this investigation, it's becoming clear that this is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. If Kash Patel can keep a lid on this and keep the people who are trying to sabotage the investigation under control, they're going to search the funding. They're going to search the non-governmental staff. They're going to look at the witnesses. They're going to look at phone records. They're going to look at all these gaming sites where they all communicated with each other. And there's one other little tidbit I want to throw in. Again, I don't know if this is true, but it was observed by somebody, I'm sorry. It was observed by somebody who was standing there. Right after this shot, you had all these people who were exiting very quickly, but there was one small group that did not move. So you heard about this too. Yes. So the argument is that they knew something. So who were they? Were they part of this trans group? By the way, I just want to mention, if I mentioned trans groups, we did cover somebody called the Zizians. I don't know if you remember the Zizians, but the Zizians are vegan transgender, very violent, who have murdered several people. They came to attention, I think, back in February when they murdered a state trooper on the highway. I don't remember that story. So there's a whole group here, I'm sorry, of people who are associated with the transgender movement who show extraordinary levels of violence. Okay? Were there 2 people on the roof? The question is being asked, but we don't have an answer yet. The broader topic here of domestic terrorism in the USA is not adequately being addressed. Keep talking about it. We're going to do something about it. What are we waiting for, Eric? Are we waiting for Pam again? Waiting for Pam to issue a statement where we're going to do X, Y, and Z to these groups that are clearly involved in domestic terrorism, like Antifa. Know where they are. They go out and demonstrate. They go out and destroy things. And still we do nothing about it. I am not happy with this. Anyway, I just want to mention, by the way, that Utah Governor Cox, what a disappointment. What an awful, awful disappointment he is. So he's one of these guys who's trying to take a balanced approach to what's going on, and he cannot come to terms with the fact that you have a group of people who are just evil. Sorry, man, something in my throat. Okay.
But like a week ago, he was the conservative darling because he promised to execute somebody before a trial.
Yeah, well, not enough, right? You have to remember that he hates Trump, etc. All right, anyway, we have up the link for a great comment by Stephen Miller about how America must have resolve. Now I want to quickly get through the other news stuff because Eric has given me the high sign. All right.
Like and subscribe.
Okay, it's called The Death. Oh yeah, and remember, like and subscribe, especially subscribe.
Share with your friends.
Yes, that too. Okay, so death of the vaccine safety myth. all right? I will just say, as a biology kind of guy, there remains a phenomenal amount of confusion over vaccine safety. Part of it is going to be based upon the fact that a lot of these vaccines have been used for decades and decades, right? Anyway, I hope to get this thing squared away, but I'm sorry, there is the study that was done, I think it was the Ford Medical Center in Detroit. So they did a study back in 2020. It was the first true study where you had a vaccine group and a placebo group. Apparently this has never been done. This is one of RFK Jr.'s complaints. And this study was done in 2020. It has been suppressed for 5 years. 5 years. And what do we learn? You betcha that vaccines cause ADHD. Autism is still on the table here. Asthma, other respiratory disorders and other problems. Immune dysfunction. Okay? That study, which was suppressed for all that time, has now finally come out, okay? And you had a hearing with Senator Johnson from Wisconsin talking about it. I can only hope and pray that there will finally be serious attention brought to this. It has been far too long, and far too many people have suffered for it. Anyway, I just want to point out the other thing. All right, the title is Trump demands that NATO stop helping Russia. Yeah, you heard it right. Trump telling NATO to stop helping Russia. Well, what could we possibly be talking about? Unfortunately, we talk about the same old crap. The same old crap. Oil and gas, okay?
He was a Russian stooge.
Yeah, exactly, okay? If we're going to, quote, get Russia to the peace table, you're going to have to put the slamma-jamma on all of Russia's energy infrastructure. Okay? That speaks for itself. Now, this other point here, sorry. Okay, climate model. Looking for a climate model that works. Hey, Louise, would you like a climate model that works? Yeah, me too. It's too bad what's the count now? I've lost track. 30, 35 of them that have been created by these clowns over the years about climate change, and not one of them have worked. They've all been wrong. All of them lack any kind of predictive value, and yet they insist. Yet they insist. So it's a good article that takes a detailed look. There's a flow diagram and everything. It's very cool. So you got to see that. Okay. Now so here's another thing, ladies and gentlemen, you got to keep in mind. The Ukrainian culture and the Russian culture are more like this than this. They share deep historical connections, which Putin has used to claim Ukraine's a part of Russia, but that's another story. Well, guess what? Now we have an announcement that the Ukrainians managed to steal the plans for the Russians' next generation nuclear submarines. So they're going to have to start all over again. All right? Now that we have the plans, we know what their capabilities are, and we know what the countermeasures are going to be. So, all right. And by the way, a story, I saw this story, I couldn't believe it. I'm still trying to absorb this. There was an account where the Russians put forth 600, 800 of these Spetsnaz troops, and they invaded a part of Ukraine, but they all got killed. But then in addition, the Ukrainians had some kind of anti-submarine weapons that they brought out, and they sank 5 Russian submarines, 5 of these diesel-electric boats of theirs. That's like a 10% reduction in their fleet, if that's true. So anyway, I just had to share that with you. Tina Peters, all right, same story. Release Tina Peters. I know she's been now overshadowed by these awful events, but you got to release her. Last thing I want to mention is that there's a class of food additives we should be very concerned about, and these would be referred to as neurotoxins, okay? Prime among them is MSG, but there are others. There are a number of food colorings, and hold on to your hat, yeast extracts. They are what are called excitotoxins. They overstimulate parts of your brain. and that is not healthy. In the worst cases, it can kill you, all right? So we'll be talking about neurotoxins in the weeks to come. And on that happy note, see you next week.